Rule 4. Be concrete and concise. From a Workbook for Arguments by Morrow and Weston. There's a variety of things that you want to avoid when you're making an argument. It's really important to avoid abstract, vague, and general terms. Here's an example of a good sentence. We hiked for hours in the sun. But notice how this one isn't quite as good. It was an extended period of laborious exertion. So I think we can see the difference between these. We hiked for hours in the sun is a lot clearer way to say it was an extended period of laborious exertion. So, sometimes as we're learning to write, when we start to learn how big words can fit together, it can feel really good and fun to put them together in strange ways. But when making arguments, in philosophy in general, and I think often in life, when you can be clear, you're going to get ahead a lot faster. Given this, it's also really important to be concise and to try to present your information clearly and in as few words as possible. Now, I'll point out here, it's not usually necessary to try to get it down to as tight of a presentation as possible. You should just sort of gesture towards that direction, right? I'm not going to count words, and if you could have had it in 5 but you use 6, such as life. But generally speaking, you want to try to present your ideas in as few words as possible. An airy elaboration just loses everyone that's reading what you've written in an extra fog of words. We want to try to avoid this. Okay, let's look at an example, and I'll let you try to decide whether this is a good example or a bad example. For those whose roles primarily involve the performance of services, as distinguished from assumptions of leadership responsibilities, the main pattern seems to have been a response to the leaders invoking obligations that were concomitants of the status of membership in the societal community and various of its segmental units. The closest modern analogy is the military service performed by an ordinary citizen, except that the leaders of Egyptian bureaucracy did not need a special emergency to invoke legitimate obligations. Okay, so is this a good example or a negative one? Yeah, this one is pretty rough. Let's look at that whole paragraph cleaned up into one sentence. In ancient Egypt, the common people were liable to be conscripted for work. So notice the difference between these two. All of this can be said in one nice, tight, clear sentence. This is the kind of thing that we want to work towards in this class.